Let's talk about it a little more concretely. Let's talk about changing the material reality of the racial environment in which we live because we've talked about it kind of interpersonally, right? You've talked about the impact that you have on social media and whatnot. What about, I'm talking about the basics: shelter, healthcare, food, environment, safety. What things do you think that we can actually do to improve the racial environment? Not just for Black Americans, but for all Americans, including white Americans as well.
Mm. Okay, so this multiple topics here. So on the material reality thing, because I've pushed on that. I think that is the most important. And I've actually pushed against progressives on it because, especially on the one about race first, progressives will be down for the cause in word. Like, hey, we have to do this for blacksmiths. And the moment they find an inconvenient situation where the right's like, oh my God, this person put forward a policy that, will give this black school over here more money than this majority white school. You're not okay with that. And often progressives are like, oh yeah, it should be equal. No, it shouldn't. And I will say that explicitly. If you believe a group is behind and you are trying to make them better off, you cannot do that by going for equalizing, right? Because inertia, all of that, right? You continue a pace, and sadly, continuing a pace actually makes things worse. So if you're going to be progressive, I'm separated from the liberal. If you're going to place yourself as a radical, you have to be willing to take radical steps. But at the same time, I will say, now this will touch your second point. I will not personally be okay with radical steps that are only radical steps aimed at Black people. That's me. I want radical steps. If you're going to take the time to take a radical step, that poor white kid or white person, right? I pretend I'm always putting these terms in quotes, by the way. If they're desperate too, help them along the way. And sort of one of the things like MLK kind of made these points, right? Like he was very focused on we have to help the material conditions of Black people to make, to erase the impact of this stuff. But at the same time, while you're doing it, you could uplift poor white people, right? So for me, and this is why I've always found like the argument between like class first or race first to be kind of silly. If you are doing it right, you could say, hey, I notice this impacts Black people more and it impacts white people. So fix it for both, right? And it is perfectly fine to fix it where there's going to be a disproportionate benefit to Black people. In fact, do not run away from that. Like I remember even the Obamacare thing with the Medicaid expansion, right? Some Republicans were pointing out, oh, it looks like it's a giveaway to Black people because more Black people were using Medicaid. And so many progressives were like trying to, oh, no, it's not. It's as equal as it can be. Don't do that. And I'm not telling people to go out and speak in the way where, we're doing X for equity. I actually hate that language as well, right? But when it hits that you have a good policy idea, and it is a good policy idea on its merits, and it helps Black people more, what helps poor people more, don't run from that. Don't shy away from that. We are helping, I'll put natives in there too, because it's important, right? We're helping this native community, we're helping this Black community, and we're helping poor white people. And then let your opponents argue, because it's not like your opponents are going to be your friends if you back down on this stuff. So do what you think is right and put your money, as it is, where your mouth is. If you truly believe in sort of erasing the impact of structural racism or systemic racism, you can't do it purely by words. You must actually be willing to take action. And at the same time, I am not comfortable with someone simply being against racial injustice. You must also be always against economic injustice.